What if your greatest disappointment with God didn't come from what He did, but from what you believed He would do? Pause for a moment and really think about that. Many people follow Jesus expecting promises He never made. They expect constant comfort, a life free from pain, easy paths, recognition, protection from every unexpected storm. They create the idea that faith guarantees emotional stability and visible success. But when we look closely at the Gospels, we discover something deeply unsettling. Jesus never promised a life without suffering. On the contrary, He was completely honest from the very beginning. And perhaps it is precisely that honesty that makes His words so difficult to accept. Jesus attracted crowds, yet He never softened the truth to keep them. He did not negotiate the calling. He did not adapt His message to please people. He did not promise what human hearts wanted to hear. While many leaders promise success, Jesus spoke about surrender. While many promise visible victories, Jesus spoke about the cross. While many offer immediate prosperity, Jesus spoke about losing in order to gain. And this is where many become confused. At no point did Jesus promise that following God would be easy. He never said faith would spare us from loss, rejection, or seasons of silence. He never guaranteed that others would understand our choices. What He promised was presence. And that promise is very different from comfort. Presence means walking with us, not removing the road. It means sustaining us, not eliminating every obstacle. It means strengthening us, not numbing us. Perhaps this is one of the greatest crises of modern faith. We have created expectations that were not born from Jesus' words, but from human interpretations. We expect God to function as a shield against any pain. But Jesus never said that. He said that in this world we would have trouble. And still, He called us to follow Him. The problem is not trusting God. The problem is trusting promises He never made. When reality does not match the expectations we created, many become frustrated. They withdraw. They harden their hearts. Not because God failed, but because they believed something that never came from Him. Jesus never promised applause. He never promised social acceptance. He never promised that we would be understood. In fact, He said we would be rejected because of His name. He said the world would hate those who chose to walk with Him. These words are rarely highlighted, but they remain true. Following Jesus is not entering a spiritual comfort zone. It is stepping into a path of transformation, and transformation hurts. It confronts the ego. It breaks illusions. It dismantles false expectations. Jesus never promised that this process would be pleasant. He promised that it would be real. When we look at the lives of the apostles, this becomes even clearer. They did not receive easy lives. They received persecution, loss, imprisonment, and in many cases, death, yet they remained firm, not because everything worked out, but because they knew whom they had believed. Jesus also never promised immediate answers. Many times He responded with silence. Other times He answered with questions. This teaches us something profound. Faith is not built only on answers. It is built on trust. Trusting even when we do not understand. Remaining even when it hurts. Perhaps you are living in a season where you are asking, where is God? Perhaps you are frustrated because you expected something different. Perhaps you believed that following Jesus would spare you from certain pains. And now, faced with reality, your heart feels confused. But here is the truth. Jesus never promised the absence of pain. He promised meaning. There is a deep difference between a faith built on false promises and a faith built on truth. The first collapses when pain arrives. the second grows stronger through it. Jesus did not call people to a comfortable life. He called them to a life of purpose. And when we understand what he never promised, we begin to value what he truly offered. Not an easy road, but a true one. Not a life without tears, but a life filled with hope. And that hope is not found in avoiding the cross, but in knowing it is not the end. When this truth moves from the mind to the heart, something changes deeply within us. We begin to realize that many of our disappointments with God were not born from his silence, but from our expectations. We expected promises that were never made. Jesus was always clear. We simply did not always listen carefully. There comes a moment in the Christian journey when faith must mature. It stops being based on what God can give us and starts being based on who he is. That moment is not comfortable. It dismantles illusions. It confronts motivations. It forces us to decide whether we follow Jesus for what he offers or for who he reveals himself to be. Jesus never promised that the path would seem fair in human eyes. Many times, righteous people suffer while unjust people prosper. He never denied that reality. He simply pointed to something greater, a kingdom beyond this life, a justice that does not end in the present moment. When we understand this, we stop measuring faith by visible results. We begin measuring it by faithfulness, and faithfulness means remaining even when there are no clear signs of reward. Many abandoned faith because they believed following Jesus would guarantee protection from emotional loss, internal crises, or seasons of darkness. But Jesus never promised that. He promised that the light would not be extinguished, even when the night was long. He promised we would not be alone. He promised transformation through the process, and transformation requires walking through places we would never choose on our own. Perhaps today you are in one of those places, a place where the promises you expected did not come true, a place where reality confronted your faith, a place where the silent question arises, is it worth continuing? It is exactly at that point that the gospel stops being theory and becomes life. Continuing, even without human guarantees, is an act of mature faith. It is choosing to trust Jesus not because of what he promises, but because of what he has already revealed. Love, faithfulness, presence, truth. Jesus never promised constant comfort, visible success, or the absence of pain, but he promised something infinitely greater. I am with you always. Presence sustains where empty promises fail. Presence comforts where explanations cannot. Presence strengthens when strength runs out. If your faith is being refined today, understand this: it is not abandonment. It is growth. God is not pushing you away. He is drawing you deeper. Now I want to ask you something honestly. What promise did you believe that Jesus never actually made? If this message touched you, write it in the comments. Naming false expectations can be the beginning of a lighter, truer faith. If this reflection spoke to you, take a moment to like this video. That simple action helps this message reach others who may be struggling silently in their faith. Share it with someone who needs this encouragement today. And if you want to grow in a faith that is conscious, deep, and rooted in presence rather than illusion, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Next week, we will release new videos and new reflections that will continue challenging and strengthening your spiritual journey. We do not promise easy paths here, but we walk with the one who promised to be with us until the very end. See you in the next video.